And so when I get that file or those files, I don't know anything about Leonard Peltier. I don't know anything about the American Indian movement. I've heard a little bit about it. I barely know anything about the treatment and the interaction between the United States government and the Native Americans, because unless you go out searching for that information, you're not going to learn it in school. You get about 15 minutes of a sanitized story about the Trail of Tears and only the Cherokee version, and then that's it. You don't learn about anything else. And so when I sit down with the file of the United States versus Leonard Peltier, I have no preconceived notion of how this ought to turn out, what happened, why it happened. I just start reading. And I read some newspaper articles to get a general sense of what this is about. I start reading the opinions of the courts of appeals to find out kind of what were the issues that came in. And then I start reading the transcripts. And I'm reading this as a former federal judge who's only been off the bench maybe less than 2 years. And so as I read this, my thoughts are, oh my God, how are we still talking about this case? I start to see that, wait a minute, how did you get Leonard Peltier back from Canada? Because you had no evidence that he shot anyone. They did that by lying. They did that by getting a woman named Myrtle Poorbear to sign multiple affidavits saying, I'm his girlfriend, I was there, I saw him do it. That was one of them. There were other affidavits that were inconsistent with that. But ultimately, that was their proof. The only problem was Myrtle Poorbear never met Leonard Peltier. She wasn't there that day, wasn't his girlfriend. She didn't know anything about those events except for what she had heard later. And she had never even met Leonard Peltier until one day in court. That was the first time she'd ever seen him. And when asked, why did you sign this affidavit if it wasn't true? She said, because I was threatened and intimidated by the FBI. If I didn't sign this affidavit, they were going to take my child away from me. And so when I